You press forward, trying not to think about how much more confident you felt with that spool of golden thread. There's a reason heroes have sidekicks, magical items, and dramatically timed lightning bolts. You, however, are currently armed, with nothing but a sword and an unshakable sense of denial. Then you hear it. Not a footstep exactly, more like a slow rhythmic clomp, followed by the echo of a deep nasal exhale. It sounds bovine, large, slightly asthmatic. The Minotaur. You duck behind a pillar, a dusty, crumbling chunk of stone that offers about as much cover as a pizza menu, and hold your breath. Your heart hammers against your ribs like a drum solo gone rogue. The clomping grows louder, closer, then abruptly stops. Silence. You peek out. Nothing. The corridor is empty. You wait another beat, then slip out and start walking in the opposite direction as fast as your leather sandals will carry you, which, fun fact, was the same speed Roman tourists would later flee erupting volcanoes. Not that it helped them. Much you turn a corner, then another, then four more. Each passage looks identical, save for a growing layer of anxiety sweat on your face. This place is practically a clone machine for corridors. You start to wonder if Daedalus was secretly just trying to prank King Minos. A sudden gust of warm air brushes past your cheek. You freeze, not because of the air, but because it smells unmistakably like hay and wet fur and gym locker. You spin, nothing behind you, yet the scent lingers like a bad cologne. You press on, this time quieter, more cautious, trying not to let your sword drag on the stone floor. You find yourself in a wider chamber, circular, with a high-domed ceiling painted with constellations. Most are familiar, some are not. Is that a crab wrestling a giraffe? Historians still argue over whether Minoan astronomy was symbolic, practical, or just an ancient form of doodling. At the center of the room lies a large chunk of broken pottery. You kneel beside it. The shards are covered in images, one of which depicts a stick-figure human being yeeted across a maze by a much larger stick-figure bull. You squint. Was this a warning, a prophecy, or just ancient slapstick? Suddenly the clomping returns, closer now. No time to appreciate ancient art. You dart through one of the chamber's exits, blindly choosing the middle of three identical archways. This new corridor is darker, the air heavier. You run a hand along the wall to guide yourself, which turns out to be a mistake. The surface is coated in something slick and hairy. You wipe your hand on your tunic with a shudder. Your path turns sharply, and suddenly you're face to face with a statue. You almost swing your sword at it. Almost. It's a crude stone carving of a hero, probably one of your predecessors. The arms are chipped off. The face is worn smooth. Someone has carved LOL into the chest. Below, in slightly more careful script, are the words, "If you read this, you're already too deep." Reassuring. You step around the statue and keep going, footsteps echoing in a rhythm that almost sounds like someone following you. You stop. The echo stops. You go. The echo goes. So you decide to test it. You jump once, nothing. You clap twice. The echo claps. 3 times. You freeze. That's not how echoes work. You whisper to no one in particular. Something in the shadows laughs. Low, throaty, amused. It's your voice, or something very close to it. You bolt. Not heroic, not graceful, just a full-blown cartoon sprint. Your sandals slap the floor with a noise that's both ridiculous and very, very real. Eventually, breathless, you collapse behind a large stone column shaped vaguely like a daisy. Because yes, apparently someone in the labyrinth interior design Team really liked florals. You sit in the shadows trying to calm your breathing. The clumping has faded again. Maybe you lost him, or maybe he's just letting you think that, you sigh. Next time, you mutter, I'm bringing a map or an intern. The ceiling drips gently in the distance. Somewhere behind you, a quiet moo. You try not to think about it. You stand up, dust off your knees, and immediately take the next turn without thinking. Classic maze survival instinct, also known as the get out of here before something breathes down your neck maneuver. The corridor slopes gently downward, which is never a good sign in Greek mythology. Down usually means deeper trouble, or pits, or mid-bosses. The walls begin to change. They're no longer made of smooth limestone, but a rougher stone with bits of mosaic embedded in it. Tiny blue tiles shimmer faintly in the torchlight. You're not sure where the light is even coming from anymore. The labyrinth seems to provide it now, which is, frankly, unsettling. You reach a fork, then another, then a third fork that just loops back to the first. You try left again, because obviously that worked so well the first time. Halfway down this new tunnel, something catches your eye on the wall, a crude drawing scratched into the stone. It looks like a cow, or possibly a bear, wearing a party hat, and next to it what appears to be a stick figure, either running or dancing. You squint. Maybe a guide, you whisper, trying to sound hopeful. You follow the drawings, which get weirder as they go. One shows the stick figure hugging the cow. Another has them high-fiving. One shows a plate of food, what might be grapes and some sort of cake. Or is that a hat? Your brain is too tired to interpret ancient stick art. And then, around a bend, the path opens into a small alcove. It's cozy, in the way that closets under stairs can be cozy. In the center, someone has left a pile of bones. Not ominous at all, but next to them, propped against the wall, is a feather, a large, bright blue one, like it came from a peacock who moonlights as a wizard. You pick it up. It's soft, yet sturdy. Maybe you can use it to mark turns. You tuck it into your belt and whisper, "Inventory, magical feather, probably not cursed." That's when the air changes again. A shift, like something just entered the corridor behind. You spin. Nothing. But the silence is heavier now. You retreat into the alcove and press your back to the wall, half expecting a minotaur charge. But instead the faintest whisper of movement, just a few steps, then stillness. You wait. More silence. You step back into the corridor. Slowly, sword raised, and trip over a loose stone. You face plant with all the elegance of a wet sandal. The echo of your fall bounces down the tunnel like it's auditioning for a Greek tragedy. But hey, no minotaur immediately devouring you, so that's a plus. As you scramble up, you hear something. A faint snort. Could be laughter, could be something trying to clear its sinuses. Either way, it's nearby. You sprint again, following the drawings. They now show the stick figure pointing, leading toward a spiral staircase etched into the stone floor. "Thank you, ancient graffiti artist," you mutter, taking the stairs two at a time. You emerge into a new chamber, square, low ceiling. A fresco on the ceiling shows a familiar scene. Theseus, you holding a ball of string. Rude. You look around. 3 exits, all marked with a different symbol above the archway. One shows a moon, one a tree, and the third, a fish with legs. You're still staring when a bat flutters past your head and perches above the fish door. You know what? Sure. Why not? You walk through and are immediately greeted by a gust of warm, stale air. The passage is lined with vines, real ones, twisting and alive, gently pulsing as if breathing. You touch one. It purrs. You back away slowly. There's a rustling behind you. You spin again. Still nothing. You're starting to think the Minotaur isn't just stalking you, he's toying with you. Historically, the Minotaur, Asterian if you want to be polite, was said to be a creature of brute force, not subtlety. But historians still debate whether he retained any human intelligence. Some even believe he could understand language. A few more fringe scholars claim he wrote poetry, probably dark, brooding poetry about abandonment and dietary restrictions. You push forward, deeper into the vine-choked hallway, whispering small pep talks to yourself. This is fine, you've handled worse. Like that time you had to babysit baby Hercules. Nothing screams mortal peril like a toddler who can bench press your furniture. The tunnel curves again, this time to the right, and you whisper to the feather on your belt, "You better be magical, buddy, I need a win." Hey guys, tonight we step into the sandals of a slightly overconfident Greek hero. Yes, you, Theseus, marching boldly into the twisting shadows of the labyrinth, without the one thing you were specifically told not to forget. That's right, the string, the literal lifeline. You left it outside, probably distracted by how cool you thought you looked holding that sword. Now you're standing at the mouth of a tunnel that smells like damp limestone and questionable decisions. Behind you, Ariadne is probably shouting something important. Maybe it's the string, maybe it's call me. Too late now. One step inside, and you're swallowed whole by the maze. Stone corridors rising like frozen waves, and every surface is cold enough to make your nose regret existing. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is where you are. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You take your first real step forward, the echo bouncing in a way that's definitely less epic soundtrack and more haunted bathhouse. Still, you fought worse, right? Well, not labyrinths per se. This is your first, and it already smells like something large and carnivorous had beans for breakfast. You pause, glance behind you, and there it is. That cursed little spool of golden thread lying just outside the threshold. So close. Yet, you know the rules. Theseus doesn't backtrack, it's a pride thing. Also, stepping back out would kind of invalidate the entire myth. Right. Improvisation it is. You mutter a few creative insults under your breath, mostly directed at your own memory, and start walking. The walls are covered in faded frescoes, bulls, dancers, mazes within mazes. The style's classic Minoan, which you'd appreciate more if you weren't slowly realizing you have zero sense of direction. You try to mark the wall with your sword, but the stone is too hard. That's when you remember a fact from Hero Training 101. The original labyrinth was said to be built by Daedalus, the genius who also invented human flight and child endangerment. Historians still debate whether Daedalus made it intentionally, unsolvable, or if he just got carried away with the floor plan. You round a corner and find 3 identical tunnels. Left, right, and the one that smells like moldy cheese. You choose left, because statistically left is lucky, right? Wrong. Your sandal squelches into something that might once have been fruit, or something fruit-adjacent. The corridor narrows, and the ceiling dips. You crouch, ducking under a suspicious vine that seems to be growing upside down. Somewhere far off, there's a distant clatter, metal against stone. You freeze, listen, then silence. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was a goat wearing armor, totally normal. You keep going because what else are you going to do? The walls begin to curve subtly. You tell yourself you're not lost, even though you are. You know it. The Minotaur knows it. Probably even that vine knows it. At one point you stop to strategize, read panic quietly against a wall. Your stomach growls. You realize you forgot lunch too. But hey, at least you remembered your sword, right? You think back to Ariadne's last words. Don't forget the string, Theseus, delivered with all the weight of a woman who knows exactly what kind of man she's dating. In fairness, she could have reminded you twice. You wander deeper, and every step feels like it's pulling you further away from any chance of a coherent escape plan. Still, it's not all bad. The labyrinth has a sort of ancient fantasy IKEA vibe. You half expect a Minotaur to pop out asking if you've seen the lac shelf in walnut finish. A faint breeze brushes your cheek and you spin around, sword raised. But there's nothing. Just more tunnels, more silence, and the growing awareness that the labyrinth is very much alive and it knows you're here. You press forward, trying not to think about how much more confident you felt with that spool of golden thread. There's a reason heroes have sidekicks, magical items, and dramatically timed lightning bolts. You, however, are currently armed with nothing but a sword and an unshakable sense of denial. Then you hear it. Not a footstep exactly, more like a slow, rhythmic clomp, followed by the echo of a deep nasal exhale. It sounds bovine, large, slightly asthmatic, the Minotaur. You duck behind a pillar, a dusty, crumbling chunk of stone that offers about as much cover as a pizza menu, and hold your breath. Your heart hammers against your ribs like a drum solo gone rogue. The clomping grows louder, closer, then abruptly stops. Silence. You peek out. Nothing. The corridor is empty. You wait another beat, then slip out and start walking in the opposite direction as fast as your leather sandals will carry you, which, fun fact, was the same speed Roman tourists would later flee erupting volcanoes. Not that it helped them much. You turn a corner, then another, then 4 more. Each passage looks identical, save for a growing layer of anxiety, sweat on your face. This place is practically a clone machine for corridors. You start to wonder if Daedalus was secretly just trying to prank King Minos. A sudden gust of warm air brushes past your cheek. You freeze, not because of the air, but because it smells unmistakably like hay and wet fur and gym locker. You spin, nothing behind you, yet the scent lingers like a bad cologne. You press on, this time quieter, more cautious, trying not to let your sword drag on the stone floor. You find yourself in a wider chamber, circular, with a high dome ceiling painted with constellations. Most are familiar, some are not. Is that a crab wrestling a giraffe? Historians still argue over whether Minoan astronomy was symbolic, practical, or just an ancient form of doodling. At the center of the room lies a large chunk of broken pottery. You kneel beside it. The shards are covered in images, one of which depicts a stick-figure human being yeeted across a maze by a much larger stick-figure bull. You squint. Was this a warning, a prophecy, or just ancient slapstick? Suddenly the clomping returns, closer now. No time to appreciate ancient art. You dart through one of the chamber's exits, blindly choosing the middle of 3 identical archways. This new corridor is darker, the air heavier. You run a hand along the wall to guide yourself, which turns out to be a mistake. The surface is coated in something slick and hairy. You wipe your hand on your tunic with a shudder. Your path turns sharply, and suddenly you're face to face with a statue. You almost swing your sword at it. Almost. It's a crude stone carving of a hero, probably one of your predecessors. The arms are chipped off. The face is worn smooth. Someone has carved LOL into the chest. Below, in slightly more careful script, are the words, "If you read this, you're already too deep." Reassuring. You step around the statue and keep going, footsteps echoing in a rhythm that almost sounds like someone following you. You stop, the echo stops, you go. The echo goes. So you decide to test it. You jump once. Nothing. You clap twice. The echo claps. 3 times. You freeze. That's not how echoes work. You whisper to no one in particular. Something in the shadows laughs, low, throaty, amused. It's your voice, or something very close to it. You bolt. Not heroic, not graceful, just a full-blown cartoon sprint. Your sandals slap the floor with a noise that's both ridiculous and very, very real. Eventually, breathless, you collapse behind a large stone column shaped vaguely like a daisy. Because yes, apparently someone in the labyrinth interior design, team really liked florals. You sit in the shadows trying to calm your breathing. The clomping has faded again. Maybe you lost him, or maybe he's just letting you think that. You sigh. Next time, you mutter, I'm bringing a map, or an intern. The ceiling drips gently in the distance. Somewhere behind you, a quiet moo. You try not to think about it. You stand up, dust off your knees, and immediately take the next turn without thinking. Classic maze survival instinct. Also known as the get out of here before something breathes down your neck maneuver. The corridor slopes gently downward, which is never a good sign in Greek mythology. Down usually means deeper trouble, or pits, or mid-bosses. The walls begin to change. They're no longer made of smooth limestone, but a rougher stone with bits of mosaic embedded in it. Tiny blue tiles shimmer faintly in the torchlight. You're not sure where the light is even coming from anymore. The labyrinth seems to provide it now, which is, frankly, unsettling. You reach a fork, then another, then a third fork that just loops back to the first. You try left again, because obviously that worked so well the first time. Halfway down this new tunnel, something catches your eye on the wall. A crude drawing scratched into the stone. It looks like a cow, or possibly a bear wearing a party hat, and next to it what appears to be a stick figure either running or dancing. You squint. Maybe a guide, you whisper, trying to sound hopeful. You follow the drawings, which get weirder as they go. One shows the stick figure hugging the cow. Another has them high-fiving. One shows a plate of food, what might be grapes and some sort of cake. Or is that a hat? Your brain is too tired to interpret ancient stick art. And then, around a bend, the path opens into a small alcove. It's cozy in the way that closets under stairs can be cozy. In the center, someone has left a pile of bones. Not ominous at all. But next to them, propped against the wall, is a feather, a large, bright blue one, like it came from a peacock who moonlights as a wizard. You pick it up. It's soft, yet sturdy. Maybe you can use it to mark turns. You tuck it into your belt and whisper, "Inventory, magical feather." Probably not cursed. That's when the air changes again. A shift, like something just entered the corridor behind. You spin, nothing. But the silence is heavier now. You retreat into the alcove and press your back to the wall, half expecting a minotaur charge. But instead, the faintest whisper of movement. Just a few steps, then stillness. You wait. More silence. You step back into the corridor, slowly, sword raised, and trip over a loose stone. You face-plant with all the elegance of a wet sandal. The echo of your fall bounces down the tunnel like it's auditioning for a Greek tragedy. But hey, No minotaur immediately devouring you, so that's a plus. As you scramble up, you hear something, a faint snort. Could be laughter, could be something trying to clear its sinuses. Either way, it's nearby. You sprint again, following the drawings. They now show the stick figure pointing, leading toward a spiral staircase etched into the stone floor. Thank you, ancient graffiti artist, you mutter, taking the stairs 2 at a time. You emerge into a new chamber, square, low ceiling. A fresco on the ceiling shows a familiar scene. Theseus, you holding a ball of string. Rude, you look around. 3 exits, all marked with a different symbol above the archway. One shows a moon, one a tree, and the third, a fish with legs. You're still staring when a bat flutters past your head and perches above the fish door. You know what? Sure. Why not? You walk through and are immediately greeted by a gust of warm, stale air. The passage is lined with vines, real ones, twisting and alive, gently pulsing as if breathing. You touch one, it purrs. You back away slowly. There's a rustling behind you. You spin again. Still nothing. You're starting to think the Minotaur isn't just stalking you. He's toying with you. Historically, the Minotaur, Asterian if you want to be polite, was said to be a creature of brute force, not subtlety. But historians still debate whether he retained any human intelligence. Some even believe he could understand language. A few more fringe scholars claim he wrote poetry, probably dark, brooding poetry about abandonment and dietary restrictions. You push forward, deeper into the vine-choked hallway, whispering small pep talks to yourself. This is fine. You've handled worse. Like that time you had to babysit baby Hercules. Nothing screams mortal peril like a toddler who can bench press your furniture. The tunnel curves again, this time to the right, and you whisper to the feather on your belt, "You better be magical, buddy. I need a win." You take a few tentative steps into the curving tunnel, now brushing vines aside like a jungle explorer with serious boundary issues. They cling to your arms, to your sword, to your ego. One wraps gently around your ankle like a clingy ex, and you have to shake it off, politely but firmly. The vines thin out as the corridor widens, revealing a chamber that looks more like a shrine than a trap. There's a pedestal in the center, dust-covered and cracked, with something scrawled in old Linear A script across its base. You can't read it, obviously. You spent your education wrestling and practicing dramatic speeches. But the drawing above the inscription? That's clear. A figure that looks a lot like you again, with a very exaggerated chin again, holding something that looks ambiguous. Maybe a chicken. You step closer. On the pedestal sits a hunk of bread. It's dark, fig-filled and vaguely brick-shaped. Looks ancient, but there's no mold. Could be magic, could be preservatives. You sniff it, smells edible-ish. Your stomach decides the matter for you. You take a bite. It's tough, like gladiator training tough. But there's a sweetness in there beneath the dust and potential bacteria that's oddly comforting. You sit down beside the pedestal, chewing thoughtfully, like someone who just accepted the reality of a cursed carbohydrate snack. This is when you notice something odd. A very faint hum, almost a melody, and, if you tilt your head just right, you can see markings on the walls. Musical notes? You squint. Yep, it's some kind of notation, though it's written with symbols more appropriate for math homework than music class. You hum a few bars. Nothing happens. Then you try again. But this, time badly. Like gay goats screaming into a pitch pipe badly. A door you hadn't seen before slides open. You mutter. The labyrinth responds to bad singing. Noted. The hallway beyond the hidden door is lit with a golden glow. You step inside and immediately squint. The walls are covered in mirrored tiles, fractured and warped. You catch glimpses of yourself from 10 different angles. Most of them are unflattering. Then one of them winks at you. You stop. Your reflection didn't. You lean closer to a particularly shiny tile. Your reflection is definitely moving, just not with you. It tilts its head the wrong way, raises its sword, without you raising yours. It smiles. You do not smile back. You back away cautiously. The mirrored walls begin to ripple. A voice echoes softly from all sides. Lost your string, did you? Your blood goes cold. The voice is yours. You grip your sword tighter and whisper, "This is fine, everything is fine. This is just psychological architecture." The voice giggles. Again, your giggle, which is disturbing to hear from the walls. "You should have brought a map." "Thanks," you mutter. "Very helpful." You break into a jog, trying not to look at the walls. The reflections blur and warp and begin showing scenes. You fighting, something large and horned. You sitting on a throne. You eating that same brick of fig bread while wearing a crown made of what looks suspiciously like pasta. You burst through the far end of the mirrored hall and into a new room. It's dim, square, and entirely silent. At the center sits a large round stone table with 4 chairs. One is occupied. A skeleton in rusted bronze armor leans back in the chair, one leg crossed over the other, a lute resting on its lap. The lute is missing 3 strings, and the remaining ones look like they've been tuned by someone with no regard for harmony or mercy. You slowly approach. The skeleton's head tilts up toward you, empty sockets meeting your gaze. Then it strums a single note. It's awful. Name's Clank. It says, as though introductions from undead musicians are totally standard procedure. "You're late." You blink. Late for what? The duet. He strums again. The note is somehow worse than the first. Clank gestures to a second lute on the table. You hesitate. This can't be real. But then again, you just argued with a vine and 8 archaeological bread. The bar for reality is low. You sit down, pick up the lute. It's slightly sticky. You strum a chord. It makes a sound that can only be described as accidental jazz. "Perfect," says Clank. You spend the next few minutes jamming with the skeleton bard. It's therapeutic, even if all your songs sound like someone dropped a harp down a well. Finally, Clank nods. "You've got potential, meat boy. Might even survive this place. Just remember, the labyrinth doesn't hate you." You frown. "That's reassuring?" "It's bored," he adds. "And you're interesting." Clank vanishes in a puff of dust and irony, leaving behind the out-of-tune lute and one final plink of a note echoing in your ears. You look around. One exit. You take it, still humming slightly off-key. You exit the bard's chamber with a mix of confusion and mild rhythm, still tingling in your fingertips. The corridor ahead feels different. Less ancient tomb, more grandma's attic that's been cursed by a trickster god. You can almost smell cinnamon and old scroll glue. The walls here are carved with shallow niches, each housing strange objects: a bronze comb, a cracked wine goblet, what appears to be a petrified turnip. You pause at one alcove where a child's doll stares back at you with one glass eye and a mouth that seems slightly too wide. You keep walking. Soon the air grows warmer, not comforting warm, more like there's a bull-headed monster doing. Push-ups nearby, warm. You pass under a low arch and, bam, run straight into a rope net hanging from the ceiling. You flail. The net tangles your sword arm and your dignity in equal measure. You wrestle your way free only to realize it's a trap, but it didn't spring. You look around. No pressure plates, no spring-loaded mechanisms, just a net, waiting for you. You swallow. Great. The Minotaur sets artisanal traps now. You continue cautiously, avoiding every shadow like it owes you money. Then, out of nowhere, the corridor ends in a narrow T-junction. You freeze, listening, and there it is again, the soft clomp of heavy hooves on stone, getting closer. No rhythm this time, just slow, deliberate steps. You choose right, not for any reason, just less Minotaur sounding. The tunnel you enter is tight, so tight you have to turn sideways. The ceiling drips. You duck instinctively. Getting Minotaured in a space this narrow would be the end of your action figure line. Eventually, the tight space opens into a rounded chamber filled with stale air and a deep, earthy scent. You take a few cautious steps, in and spot it, on the far side of the room, a table, an actual table, with stuff on it, supplies. You approach, and sure enough, there's a small clay jar sealed with wax, a torn piece of cloth, a bunch of dried herbs tied with a string. A flicker of hope stirs. You crack open the jar. Inside is perfume. You take a cautious sniff. It hits you like a cart of onions, and incense had a dramatic breakup inside your nose. Not pleasant, but possibly effective. You dab a bit on your wrists and neck like it's your hero cologne. Nothing like eau de anti-minotaur to boost your confidence. This perfume thing, totally real. In ancient times, folks used pungent balms to mask human scent from predators, or suitors, or suitor-predators. Egyptian nobles even had custom perfumes with ingredients like myrrh and occasionally crocodile dung. You're just glad this one's onion-forward. You pocket the herbs and the cloth. Might be useful, and look around. That's when you notice the wall to your left is not a wall. It's a curtain, faded, moth-eaten, but still hanging on a rod. You push it aside, and there it is. Another tunnel, wider, dustier, lined with feathers. You step forward and immediately hear a loud click. Oh no! Before you can react, something explodes above you. Poof! And a cloud of feathers rains down like an angry pillow fight orchestrated by Zeus himself. You cough, sneezing uncontrollably. You haven't sneezed this much since you challenged Apollo to a flower-picking contest. Bad move. Never out-sneeze a god. By the time the feathers settle, you're coated head to toe. You look less like a hero and more like a freshly plucked peacock that rolled through a costume party. You glance around, still alone. For now, but then tap, 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 footsteps, light ones. You whirl around, sword ready, nothing. Then you hear it again, a voice whispering. It's your voice, repeating something you didn't say. You'll never find the center. Charming. You march on. Feathers sticking to your every move, the scent of onion perfume wafting like an invisible cloud of shame. The corridor darkens. No torches now, just faint phosphorescent fungi glowing from the cracks in the floor. You step carefully, trying not to slip when a warm breeze brushes your neck. Not wind, breath. You spin. Still no one. But you know the Minotaur is close, closer than he's ever been, and somehow still silent. Maybe he's watching, maybe he's waiting, or maybe he's just annoyed that you smell like a cursed salad. You press on, finally emerging. Into a wide chamber, the floor is covered in symbols, labyrinthine patterns etched in gold. A game board? No time to figure it out. You hear it again, clomp, then silence, then breathing deep, rhythmic, too close. You freeze, sword raised, heart hammering in your chest like it's trying to dig an escape tunnel of its own. The breathing continues, slow, steady and far too close for comfort. The feathers stuck to your tunic rustle with every nervous twitch, making you sound like a disgruntled bird in a wind tunnel. Then, just as suddenly as it began, the sound stops. You turn slowly. The corridor behind you is empty, but the air heavier. Pressed down by something that knows you're here, you take a cautious step forward, then another, onto the golden symbols on the floor. They don't react, not yet. You examine them more closely. The pattern is intricate, spirals, arrows, and shapes that might be animals or abstract nightmares. In the center of the room, one symbol stands out. A spiral with a dot in the middle, surrounded by tiny footprints leading toward it. It looks almost like a play button. "Okay," you whisper. "Either this is a divine prank or Daedalus had an extremely abstract sense of humor." You step on the spiral. There's a soft click, then a deep whir as the entire floor begins to rotate. You stumble backward, catching your balance as the symbols spin beneath you like a cosmic turntable. The chamber shifts around you. Walls that weren't there before slide open. Passageways realign. You're not just in a maze, you're in a Rubik's Cube with mood swings. When the motion stops, the air is different. Warmer, slightly spicier, like someone lit a sandalwood candle of mild existential dread. You pick the leftmost path, your favorite kind of mistake, and move quickly, sword still drawn. The walls here are smoother, less natural, as if this part of the labyrinth is newer, or at least renovated recently. The torchlight has returned, casting warm flickers on the stone. That's when you hear it. A voice, clear, confident, and weirdly British. It says, "Welcome, challenger, to the door of wit." You turn a corner and find it, a massive wooden door set into a stone archway. It has eyes carved into it, moving eyes, and a mouth, currently grinning like a theater kid who just got cast. As the lead, "State your riddle," you say, because that's what a hero would say. The door chuckles. "Oh no, my fragrant feathered friend, you answer mine." It clears its non-existent throat and proclaims, "I speak without a mouth and hear without ears. I have no body, but I come alive with wind. What am I?" You stare. "Oh, great," you mutter. "A sentient ESAT question," you think. "Echo. It's got to be echo. You've dealt with plenty of those already, some of them talking back disturbingly." "Echo," you say aloud. The door frowns, then sighs. "Correct, but barely. You sounded unsure." "I was going for dramatic," you reply. The door swings open with a groan that sounds suspiciously like a disappointed sigh. You pass through only to immediately walk into another chamber. This one is unusual. It's decorated like a birthday party gone wrong. Streamers, faded balloons, and a table with a cake that says, "Happy 17th escape attempt," in frosting so stale it's cracking. A small stone tablet on the table reads, "Please celebrate responsibly. You've survived 5% of the maze." 5%? You sit in one of the mismatched chairs and eye the cake. It smells like dust and hope. There's a fork beside it made of bone. You decide to pass for now. No offense to the party gods, but you've had enough cursed carbs for one quest. The far wall is lined with portraits. You glance at them and realize they're other heroes. Some you recognize. Perseus, looking smug as always. Heracles, flexing unnecessarily. Atalanta, mid-eye roll. And at the end of the row, a blank canvas with a nameplate that just reads, "You." "Cheeky," you mutter. One of the balloons pops spontaneously. You jump. Another squeaks free and floats past your head. You take that as your cue to leave. The next hallway is narrow, lined with flickering torches. Their light dances across murals that grow increasingly frantic. Early ones show a triumphant Theseus, you fighting the Minotaur. But as you move along, the scenes change. In one, you're running. In another, you're lost. And in the final image, you're shaking hands with the Minotaur. Historians still debate whether that last panel was symbolic or literal. Some believe it was meant to represent the duality of man and beast. Others think Daedalus was just trolling. Everyone, you turn the corner and stop. The passage ahead is strewn with marbles, just marbles. Hundreds of them, rolling slightly as the floor tilts under your weight. You take one cautious step and immediately slip, landing on your rear with a clatter. You slide a full 5 meters down the marble-strewn corridor, feathered, perfumed, and mildly betrayed by physics. You come to a gentle stop at the foot of another door. This one's open. Inside is darkness, and somewhere, deep in the shadows, a soft snort. You sit there for a second, sprawled at the edge of the darkness like a hero in a slapstick comedy, marbles slowly rolling past you in every direction. The scent of onion perfume still clings to your tunic, which at this point is a patchwork of feathers, dust, and mild regret. You'd laugh if you weren't so sure that snort came from something sentient and large, and probably in the mood for hero Tartar. You rise slowly, sword in one hand, dignity in the other, or at least what's left of it. The doorway ahead yawns open, like the mouth of some ancient creature that only eats confident men named Theseus. You step forward, because of course you do. It's what heroes do, even when they've slipped on marbles. Inside, the space is pitch black. Not dim torchlight black, total blackout. You stretch a hand forward and feel air, cool and unmoving. You take another step, then another, until you're sure the corridor behind you is gone. Swallowed, and then a sound, your own voice. But it's not coming from your throat. It whispers, "You're doing great." Then it says, "No, seriously, you are so close." You spin. "Who's there?" No reply, just another whisper. Almost found it. Just a few wrong turns left. You hold your breath. The whisper chuckles. Again, your voice. You keep moving, arms stretched out now, trying not to trip on whatever ghost of a bad idea haunts this section of the maze. After several cautious steps, the darkness begins to lift, replaced by a soft blue glow. You enter a new chamber, lit by orbs floating gently in the air. They're glowing, humming faintly, and pulsing like jellyfish with good lighting design. They hover above a pool of water so still it reflects the ceiling perfectly. A soft voice speaks again, but this time it's not yours. It's higher, smoother, female definitely, like someone who teaches mindfulness and owns an excessive number of scarves. "Ask," it says, "and the water will show you." You approach the pool, peer into it, and see your reflection. But then it shifts. Now you see the labyrinth from above. An impossible view spinning gently, walls rearranging themselves in real time. Then a flash of the Minotaur lounging in a corner, eating grapes, with a napkin tucked into his neck. Casual. You stare. The water ripples, then fades back to black. You ask, "Where's the exit?" No answer. You try again, "Where's the Minotaur?" This time, the pool shows you your childhood bedroom. You blink. Okay, that's either deeply symbolic or a bug in the system. The orbs above begin to float closer. One of them touches your head, and suddenly, a jolt. Memories flood your brain. Running through palace courtyards as a kid, sneaking extra olives from royal banquets. That time you tried to ride a donkey backwards to impress a girl named Daphne. The orb drifts away. Then another one touches your shoulder. This time, you remember the training sessions with your uncle, Philocrates, the flamboyant. He believed that a hero should be able to both slay a hydra and write an ode about it. You can still hear him shouting, "Rhythm, Theseus. Slaying's just dancing with swords." Historians often omit Philocrates from the records. Too eccentric, too sparkly. You blink the visions away. The pool is now still again. The orbs retreat. The female voice returns, softer now. You know what to do. You always have. You nod slowly, then whisper, "Lie until it feels like confidence." A soft laugh. Close enough. You exit the chamber and find yourself in another hallway, this one painted entirely in pale blue and white. The floor tiles are cool underfoot, each etched with Greek letters. You step carefully. One of the tiles lights up beneath you, then another. Suddenly, a pattern emerges, a path of illuminated letters forming words. The secret is in the sound. You pause, and then you hear it, a humming. Not the orbs this time, your own voice. Echoed, layered, slightly out of sync. You hum along, and one of the walls slides open. Inside is a staircase spiraling downward. Naturally, you descend. The stone steps creak underfoot, not because they're old, but because they're pretending to be old. Aesthetic, probably. Halfway down, the stairwell opens into a small alcove, and sitting in the middle is an old lyre missing 2 strings, with a small placard beside it that reads, "Do not tune, ever." You keep walking. Finally, you reach a landing, and before you is yet another door, this one carved with an image of a man and a bull seated at a table playing what appears to be backgammon. You stare. "Well," you mutter, "at least it's not marbles again." You stand in front of the door, staring at the detailed carving. The man and the minotaur, seated across from one another at a game board, look surprisingly civil. The minotaur's holding a tiny cup, pinky raised. The man's wearing a laurel crown and what might be socks with sandals. Bold choice. You reach out and push. The door swings open with a deep groan that sounds like it's been waiting 1,000 years just to sigh dramatically at you. Inside, the chamber is dimly lit by hanging lamps shaped like seashells. In the center of the room is a small table, and behind it, yes, someone is sitting, but it's not a minotaur, it's a skeleton, a different one from Clank. This one wears a dusty robe, has a single gold tooth, and clutches a harp that looks like it's made from the ribs of someone who wasn't great at mazes. The skeleton tilts its skull in your direction and lets out a dry rasp, like a breeze through old scrolls. "You again," it croaks. You frown. "We've met?" The skeleton strums the harp once. It makes a noise, like a banjo being thrown into a pond. Not you, the you before you, and the you before that one. You blink. "I'm sorry, are you saying there are multiple me's?" The skeleton laughs, or maybe chokes, hard to tell. "Hero types. You all blur together. You come in, flail around, get poetic, usually leave half-eaten. You take a cautious step forward." "So what happened to the others?" The skeleton gestures at the harp. "Recycled." You take a closer look at the harp. Yep, definitely vertebrae. Possibly from someone who also thought string was optional. "Do you have a name?" you ask. The skeleton nods. "Call me Sid." Sid. Short for side Theseus. You blink. Of course it is. Sid motions for you to sit. You hesitate. Then lower yourself onto the stone bench opposite him. So, he says, what's your strategy? Strategy for what? Getting out. Everyone asks me for a map or the cheat code or some divine intervention. You pause. Do you have a cheat code? Sid shrugs. Not a good one. You lean in. Try me. He strums the harp again. The note it makes sounds like disappointment in musical form. Don't look for the end. Look for the moment. You squint. That's not a cheat code. That's a Pinterest quote. He nods. Exactly. You lean back, frustrated. This is ridiculous. Everything in here is ridiculous, Sid replies. You're being stalked by a half-bull poet and led around by your own voice. Fair point. You stand, nod politely to the bard, and turn to leave. But just as you reach the doorway, he calls out, "Oh, and one more thing, don't trust the vines." You pause. The ones that purr, especially the ones that purr. You step into the next corridor and instantly regret it. It's completely covered in vines, green, lush and swaying gently in an invisible breeze. You keep your arms close, trying not to touch anything. The passage is narrow and winding, and the walls are dotted with tiny carvings, figures with outstretched arms and oversized eyes. Then one of the vines brushes your cheek. You freeze. It coils slightly. Then with unmistakable intent forms the shape of a hand and waves at you. "Okay," you whisper, "that's enough cursed botany for today." You push forward, trying not to make eye contact with the foliage. Every step makes the vines rustle, more as if whispering to each other. Finally, the corridor opens into a small room, and the walls here are stone again. No vines, no whispering, just blessed silence. And in the middle of the room, resting atop a pedestal, a tiny bottle, corked. Glowing faintly, you approach. The label reads, "Minotaur Musk, extra strength." You blink. Is this cologne? It is. And it's probably what the Minotaur wears on dates. You uncork it and immediately gag. The scent is like wet leather, cinnamon, and betrayal. But it might work. Mask your scent even more. Throw him off. You dab a little on your wrists and mutter, "If I die smelling like this, bury me with double the dignity." The far wall shifts open again, automatically this time, and you walk through, now radiating the olfactory confidence of someone who just wrestled a yak in a candle store. The tunnel ahead is darker again, but wider, more deliberate. Somewhere ahead, hooves echo softly, but there's also music, a flute. You quicken your pace because nothing good ever followed flute music in a labyrinth. You walk briskly now, the faint sound of flute music teasing your ears, like a melody you almost recognize from childhood. It's not comforting, though. It's off-key, wandering between notes like someone learning to play by sheer force of confusion. And yet it's oddly hypnotic, dangerous even. The tunnel narrows again, ceiling dropping just enough to make you duck instinctively. The walls here are carved with strange spiral patterns that seem to shift subtly when you don't look directly at them. You squint, then immediately stop squinting, because this feels like the kind of place where squinting might accidentally activate a time portal or a sudden bout of interpretive dance. Then the tunnel ends in another door, a heavy wooden slab reinforced with bronze, like someone built it specifically to say, "Something dramatic happens past here." You knock, because of course you do. Nothing. You push. It creaks open slowly, revealing a cozy lantern-lit chamber. that smells of tea and goat cheese, and sitting on a cushion, cross-legged, is the Minotaur. Yes, the Minotaur, and he's playing the flute. Poorly. He glances up mid-note, eyes narrowing when he sees you. He lowers the flute, snorts once, then says in a voice deeper than any cave you've crawled through, "Took you long enough." You blink. "I thought you were going to, chase me, roar, maybe gore me dramatically." He shrugs, sets the flute aside. "I did all that with the last guy. Didn't work out. He tripped on a pretzel and cried until I walked away." You hesitate in the doorway. The Minotaur gestures to a cushion opposite him. "Sit, you look like you've been through a feather tornado." You glance down. Right, the perfume, the feathers, the slight sheen of fear sweat. You sit, he offers a bowl of something. It looks like hummus, smells like victory and garlic. You blink. "Are you trying to be friendly?" He sighs. "Listen, I've been in this maze for centuries. The roaring gets old. Sometimes I just want to talk to someone who isn't a skeleton bard or a judgmental vine." You laugh before you can stop yourself. The Minotaur smiles. Just a little. Enough to show that his teeth could still snap your spine, but that he'd rather not today. "So," you ask, "why stay here?" He shrugs. "Where would I go? I'm part of the myth. People expect me to be in the labyrinth. I leave, and suddenly I'm just another tall guy with headwear problems." You sip some tea, surprisingly good, chamomile with a hint of something. Herbal you can't name, but trust anyway. He leans back, eyes fixed on you. "But you didn't bring the string." You freeze. He chuckles. "I saw it, lying by the entrance, glorious golden lifeline, and you just waltzed in without it." "I forgot," you mutter. He laughs harder now. "You forgot? Oh, that's rich. You know how many songs the skeleton wrote about that moment? He's calling it Threadless Hero." You groan. The Minotaur rises, stretches. He's massive, easily twice your width. But he doesn't move like a monster. He moves like someone who spent too many hours doing yoga in a confined space. "Let." "Guess," he says, pacing. "You've had echoes talk back to you. Found musical doors, hallucinated a motivational pool?" You nod. "Yep," he says. "Maze does that. It adapts, especially when it likes you." You raise an eyebrow. "It likes me?" "Sure. You're funny. You talk to plants. You sneeze, like a startled horse. What's not to like?" You scowl. "That was one sneeze." He smirks. "It was 5. You both sit in silence for a moment, sipping tea and processing the absurdity of it all. Finally, he sets down his cup. "Listen, I could chase you around, do the whole savage beast bit. Or we could make a deal." You lean forward. "I'm listening." I show you a path. Not the path, but one that doesn't involve skeleton banjos or psychological warfare vines. In exchange, you leave a note at the entrance when you go. Something short. Just tell the next guy to bring snacks. You nod slowly. "That's it?" He smiles, showing just enough teeth to remind you this is still a monster. "That's it." You stand. He points to a small stone on the wall. You press it and a hidden passage slides open, narrow, torchlit and strangely sane. As you walk toward it, the Minotaur calls out, "Oh, and if you run into the talking ceiling again, don't argue. It never lets it go." You turn back. "Thank you." He nods once, then sits back down, picks up his flute and resumes playing, still badly, but somehow it sounds a little better. You step into the narrow corridor the Minotaur revealed, ducking slightly as the stone entrance slides shut behind you with a gentle thunk. The air here feels different, less chaotic, more civilized. It doesn't smell like ancient dust or impending doom. It smells like lavender. Maybe Daedalus had a spa phase. The walls are smooth, almost polished, and etched with thin grooves that form long, swirling sentences. You run your fingers along them as you walk, realizing they're written in a kind of philosophical graffiti. To find oneself, one must first get thoroughly and absolutely lost. Another reads, "This way leads elsewhere, that way might lead home. Pick neither." You nod approvingly. Classic labyrinth banter. As you walk, you notice small objects embedded in the wall. Trinkets, maybe offerings. A bronze coin, a single sandal, a tiny marble sculpture of a fish wearing a crown. You try not to think about what kind of story involves that. Soon, you reach a bend in the corridor. As you turn the corner, the scent of lavender sharpens, and then you see the source, a small domed chamber, softly glowing. In the center stands a pedestal with an ornate perfume bottle shaped like a bull's head. The plaque beside it reads, "Essence of Asterion. 1 drop for silence, 2 for secrets." You stare. Is this the Minotaur's signature scent line? Historians rarely mention Asterion's alleged affinity for fragrance, but some fragments from Knossos do reference rituals involving sacred aromatics. Some scholars argue he was more than a beast. He was a symbol of duality, of instinct and elegance intertwined. Others think ancient Cretans just liked their bulls to smell nice. You unstopper the bottle and, just out of curiosity, dab 1 drop. On your neck, the change is immediate. Your footsteps vanish, your breathing becomes silent. You click your tongue, no sound, you wave a hand. Still quiet, you are completely inaudible. Cool, you whisper, and still hear nothing. You carefully walk to the other end of the room and push open the next door with exaggerated caution. On the other side, stairs. Of course, you descend them like a silent ninja, though you're about as coordinated as a dancing goat in wet sandals. Still, no sound betrays you. Even your heartbeat seems to have agreed to take it down a notch. At the bottom, you find a large chamber filled with columns carved to resemble twisted vines. The silence persists. In the center of the room is something unexpected, a table with a large scroll on it and several small stools. Sitting on the stools are 3 rats, big rats, wearing tiny togas. They turn as you enter, squinting at you through. They're monocles, yes, monocles. You just stare. One rat adjusts his tiny sash, then says, "Ah, a silent one, finally." You raise an eyebrow. "Please take a seat," the second rat says, gesturing to an empty stool. "You're just in time for the vote." You blink. Vote. The third rat unfurls the scroll. It's a map of the labyrinth. A full map. You nearly pass out. "We're the cartographic senate," says the first. "We oversee minor realignments and snack dispersal." "And you've been nominated," the second adds. You gesture, confused. "For what?" "To break the tie," the third rat explains. "We're split on whether the eastern corridors should be rotated to allow more natural sunlight and fewer existential crises." You want to argue. You really do, but you've just been offered a map by rodents wearing formal wear in a mystical silence zone, so you sit. They hand you a peanut-sized gavel. You nod solemnly and tap the table. "The eastern corridors shall rotate." The rats cheer, quietly of course. The scroll is passed to you. You unroll it. It's beautiful, detailed, annotated with notes like "Here be mood swings" and "Avoid Thursdays." You study the layout, you see the center, you see the exit. You also see a curious mark labeled "Lunchroom." with a question mark that feels unusually ominous. You tap the scroll. The rat with the largest monocle nods. Yes, that path will lead you there. But beware the room of repeating ideas. You raise an eyebrow. Oh, you'll know it when you get there, he adds, with a nod of gratitude and a silent promise to never speak of this to anyone unless under divine interrogation. You leave. The chamber, map tucked into your belt. The silence begins to fade as you enter the next passage, the effects of the perfume waning. Your footsteps return. Your breathing is audible again. You cough once just to be sure. It echoes. You stop. The corridor ahead curves, slowly, purposefully. You follow it, until, at last, you hear something that fills you with equal parts dread and déjà vu. Your own voice. Again. But this time, it's not whispering riddles. It's singing, badly. You freeze mid-step as the hauntingly familiar voice continues its off-key serenade somewhere up ahead. The lyrics are unclear, but the melody is unmistakable, if you've ever heard a goat attempt karaoke, which, judging by this labyrinth, wouldn't be the weirdest thing to happen today. You take a cautious step forward. The air is heavier here, thick with anticipation and the faint smell of oregano? It's like someone tried to mask dread with Greek seasoning. The corridor curves, then opens into a circular room with an arched ceiling. And there it is. The door, capital D, it towers before you, its surface carved with strange runes, spirals, and... Is that a doodle of someone being hit with a loaf of bread? More importantly, it's the source of the singing, not from behind it. From the door itself. Yes, this door sings. It has a mouth carved in its center, currently vibrating with effort, and two eye-shaped indents above that blink slowly as if incredibly unimpressed with your fashion choices. Welcome. The door belts out slightly off-tempo. I am the door of wit, round 2. You made it. You nod. Hey! I will only open, the door continues, if you answer my challenge. You sigh. Is this going to be another riddle? No, the door says with theatrical flair. It's a pun-off. You blink. I'm sorry. You heard me, it says proudly. First to laugh loses. Begin. You take a deep breath. You've survived feather traps, philosophical rodents, perfumed diplomacy, and a minotaur with musical hobbies. You can handle a sentient punster. The door clears its non-existent throat. Why did Daedalus open a bakery? You wait. Because. He needed to. Silence. You raise an eyebrow. Your turn. Why did the Minotaur stop dating? The door blinks. He had too many horned expectations. The door groans, but doesn't laugh. Round 2. What did the labyrinth say to the hero? What? You ask. I'm amazed you're still alive. You press your lips together hard. Your turn again. Why did the skeleton bard fail music school? Why? He had no body of work. The door flinches. One eye squints, then it bursts. Out laughing, a mechanical clunk echoes through the room as the hinges unlatch. You win, it sings. I cracked up. The door swings open slowly, revealing a long hallway bathed in golden light. You smirk. Tough crowd. As you walk through, the door calls after you. Tell the others I'm available for parties. The hallway beyond feels different, realer, or maybe just less absurd, which is saying something after a talking door with stand-up aspirations. The walls are made of sandstone blocks, the kind used in ancient palaces. You brush your fingers along them and feel warmth, sun-warmed stone like it's outside. Could you be getting closer to the surface? A voice behind you says, "You're improving." You spin, sword half raised. It's your reflection, but not in a mirror, standing in the hallway, dressed like you, moving like you, except slightly smugger. Who are you? You ask. Still you, the doppelganger says. Just a version that remembers the string. You narrow your eyes. Are you here to help or mess with me? Both, it says, shrugging. You've come far, but the maze isn't just walls. It's you. It bends to your fears, your doubts, your Spotify. Recommendations. Okay, that last one's concerning, you mutter. Your reflection leans in. The way forward isn't always forward. Sometimes it's about knowing what not to carry. Like self-doubt? No, it replies. Like that weird feather. It's mildly cursed. You glance at the peacock feather tucked in your belt. It's been twitching on its own lately. You pull it out and toss it to the floor. It squawks. You both freeze. Did it just? Yup, says the other you. Told you. The feather twitches once more and slinks into a crack in the wall, muttering something about being underappreciated. You walk forward. The other you doesn't follow. Just watches. See you at the end, it says. Or not. You continue down the hallway, now alone again, and reach a fork. One path is well lit, lined with smooth tiles and pleasant mosaics of sunflowers and cats. The other path is dark, uneven, and smells faintly of brine and spoiled feta. Naturally, you choose the dark one, because you're a hero and also slightly allergic to comfort at this point. As you step into the shadows, a faint humming begins. Not your voice this time, it's deeper, older, and it's saying your name slowly, deliberately. You pause. Great. You're being haunted by someone who clearly couldn't afford vowels. You hesitate at the entrance of the dark tunnel, the voice still whispering your name like a disappointed teacher taking attendance in the underworld. Theseus. The air here is thick, humid, with that unpleasant, clammy texture of ancient basements and overly dramatic horror stories. The walls weep moisture, and somewhere ahead you swear you can hear dripping, steady, purposeful, like it's waiting. You steel yourself and step into the gloom, sword drawn, not because it'll help with a whisper, but because it makes you feel 7% braver. You're not even sure why the whispering knows your name. Then again, this labyrinth has been whispering things you haven't even admitted to yourself yet, so who's really surprised? As you walk, your feet splash through shallow puddles. The walls here are different, covered in tiny shells and bits of coral. Ancient marine fossils are embedded in the stone, like the maze once took a detour under the sea and forgot to rinse off. A glowing fungus lights your path now, casting eerie, green shadows that wiggle like they're judging your haircut. Then, suddenly, light. You emerge into a chamber so bright you flinch. Sunlight filters in from above, through a series of carved shafts, bathing the room in golden beams. In the center, a circular pool, perfectly still, ringed with columns shaped like fish, standing upright on their tails. Unsettling, yet kind of. Cute, etched into the floor are the words, "Reflections lie, but water listens." You peer into the pool. Your reflection stares back, then winks. Okay, you mutter. That's new. You touch the water. It ripples outward, slow, deliberate rings that echo across the surface. You watch as the pool shifts, changing into an image of the Minotaur. He's pacing a room, reading a scroll, wearing, of all things, glasses. He's literate? You whisper. Historians still debate whether Asterion, the Minotaur, retained human intelligence. Some ancient sources say he was more philosopher than monster, driven mad by isolation. Others claim he couldn't even read the word labyrinth. But here he is, reading, taking notes, drinking what is definitely a chamomile tea. You lean closer. The water shifts again. Now it shows you, but not as you are now. This version of you is older, wiser, wearing a crown, and smiling. You whisper, "Is that the future?" The water turns black instantly. Message received, no spoilers. You rise and begin to circle the pool, half hoping for another clue. You find it carved into one of the fish columns. Speak your truth, and the water will open. You think a moment, then step back to the edge and say, "I'm scared I'll fail, that I'll wander here forever, that I'll end up just another statue or lyric in a skeleton's sad song." The water ripples, a humming begins, not a voice this time, but vibration, deep resonant, like the labyrinth itself just exhaled. Then the floor beneath the pool slides apart, revealing a narrow stairway spiraling downward. You stare for a moment. Of course, more stairs. You descend, slowly, carefully. The spiral is tight, lit only by glowing moss between the bricks. You lose track of how many turns you take, but by the time you reach the bottom, you feel slightly taller from all the ducking. The chamber you enter is unlike anything you've seen so far. The walls are covered in handprints, hundreds, maybe thousands, some small, some huge, some clawed. In the center, a pedestal holds a small, sealed amphora. You approach cautiously. The lid is marked with a single word, memory. You hesitate, then open it. A swirl of light escapes, wraps around you, and you're not in the labyrinth anymore. You're a boy again, in Athens, running across the courtyard, your father shouting about discipline, your uncle reciting poetry while practicing cartwheels. You feel the warmth of the sun, the taste of stolen pomegranate, the weight of expectation already settling on your young shoulders. Then Ariadne, she's handing you the thread. Her fingers linger on yours. Her eyes say, "Don't mess this up," and then back. You're in the chamber again. The amphora is empty, but the warmth remains. You realize something important in that moment. The labyrinth isn't trying to trap you. It's trying to teach you, or maybe mock you gently while you teach yourself. Either way, you're not the same Theseus who walked in. You exit the chamber into a narrow tunnel. It's darker again, but somehow more familiar now. The walls hum gently as you pass, like they recognize you, like they're watching. And up ahead, you hear something, footsteps, but they're not hooves, they're your own. Again, you stop, wait, but this time, the footsteps stop after you do. You turn. There's nothing behind you, but there is a new message on the wall, freshly carved. Turn around again. You do, and find yourself face to face with yourself again. But this one, smiling and holding a string. The string glows faintly in the dim corridor, a soft golden shimmer like moonlight trapped in silk. Your other self, same chin, same sandals, slightly better posture, holds it delicately between thumb and forefinger. His expression is one of gentle amusement, like he's offering you a snack you forgot you liked. You stare. "Where did you get that?" He shrugs. "I remembered." You narrow your eyes. "I forgot." He nods. "I know. That's why I'm here." You reach for the string. He pulls it back slightly. "Not yet." "Seriously?" You groan. "Patience," he says. "You're not done." He turns and begins walking down a corridor that didn't exist before. Just a blank wall seconds ago. Now a gently curving path that seems to hum with its own gravity. You follow, because at this point, what's another possibly metaphysical doppelganger? As you walk, the corridor begins to change. The walls widen, the air warms. The floor is no longer stone, but smooth marble veined with gold. And the humming? It's voices, dozens of them, murmuring, singing, laughing. You round a corner and stop short. Before you stands a miniature amphitheatre, carved into the stone, lit with floating lanterns. Seated in the tiers are rats, not the toga-wearing philosophers. These are different, smaller, fuzzier, wearing tiny hoods and carrying staffs. One of them bangs a little gong. Another unfurls a scroll and squeaks. The chosen feather returns. You blink. What? Your double smiles. Just go with it. The rats erupt into squeaky applause. One leaps forward, small, grey, wearing an acorn for a helmet. You have passed the trial of forgetting. You are now Rat King adjacent. Wait, you say, raising a finger. What does adjacent mean here? The rat winks. You'll see. You are handed a crown, a very small, poorly woven crown made of string and what might be a macaroni noodle. You accept it because, why not? One of the rats squeaks loudly. As Rat King adjacent, you may summon us once and only once for aid, but not on weekends. You nod solemnly. That's fair. Then your double hands you the string. This time he lets go. You hold it. It's warm, pulsing slightly with what you assume is heroism, destiny, or possibly just static electricity. I still don't understand what any of this means, you admit. Your double shrugs. No one ever does. That's kind of the point. He begins to fade, literally, like smoke in the breeze. Before he's gone, he adds, also, don't trust the ceiling, and then he vanishes. You look up. The ceiling above you is suddenly very close, and definitely breathing. You back out of the amphitheatre turned rodent parliament and back into the tunnel, the string now coiled around your wrist like a friendly serpent. It feels right, comforting. Even if you're still not sure it'll lead out, it makes you feel tethered to something, maybe to yourself. The tunnel narrows again, sloping downward into a chamber carved from obsidian. The walls here are mirrored, naturally not polished, and your reflection glides beside you, lagging just slightly behind. You stop. It stops late. You step forward. It doesn't. You turn to face it. It grins. Then it speaks. Hello, Threadbearer. You frown. I have a sword, you know. It snorts. So does everyone who gets this far. It doesn't help. You raise your blade anyway, just for form. What are you? It steps closer, pressing a hand against the inside of the obsidian wall. I'm your opposite, the one who never entered the maze, who stayed safe, comfortable, dull. You glance down at the string around your wrist. That doesn't sound like living, you mutter. The reflection's smile fades. Exactly. And then it vanishes. You walk again, this time with purpose. The next passage is wide, decorated with murals, but not ancient this time. These look recent. Your story. Painted in vibrant colors. You falling, laughing, dodging. Feathers, debating rats. One panel shows you sneezing so hard you knock over a vase. Artistic liberties, but not inaccurate. You reach the final mural. It shows you, at the edge of the labyrinth, holding the string, facing light, a door carved from moonstone stands at the end of the hall, etched with a single phrase, one last choice. There are two handles, one silver, one bronze. Above them 2 sentences. Take the silver and forget. Take the bronze and remember. You stare. The silver glows faintly like cool water. The bronze is rough, warm to the touch. You glance. At the string, you take the bronze handle. Naturally, the door creaks open and light spills out. You step through the door and the light swallows you whole. Not harshly. There's no blinding flash or dramatic choir, but with the gentle warmth of a summer morning after a night you survived by sheer stubbornness. Your sandals land softly on grass. Yes, grass. Real, honest to Olympus grass. You wiggle your toes just to make sure it's not some illusion designed to trick emotionally exhausted heroes into crying. It's soft, springy, slightly damp. It smells like home. You look around. You're in a meadow, a real one, rolling hills. In the distance, wildflowers bobbing in the breeze, and a sky so blue it looks painted. Birds chirp somewhere in the background, and for the first time in what feels like years, you don't hear echoing footsteps, whispering walls, or the faint strains of badly played flute. You're out, you spin in place, half expecting the Minotaur to burst from the earth with a celebratory kazoo, but there's no trick, no jump scare. Just you, the open air, and a path winding gently down the hill ahead. Still clutching the string, you walk. It feels surreal, like waking up in your own bed after a week of sleeping on temple floors. Your muscles ache in weird places and your brain is still buzzing with rodent politics and cryptic advice from an alternate version of yourself. But the sun is real. The breeze is real. You laugh. Out loud. No cave ceiling to echo it back at. You with sarcasm. Just open space and maybe one confused squirrel. You follow the path, winding through olive trees and old stone ruins that look ancient even by your standards. Everything is covered in moss and sun, and the kind of silence that isn't empty, it's earned. At one point, you pass a shrine built into the side of a tree. A tiny offering bowl sits inside it. You pause, unwrap a bit of that long-forgotten fig bread still in your pouch and place it inside. Thanks, you whisper, for the weirdest journey I'll probably never be able to explain. A breeze picks up, soft, approving. You keep walking. Eventually the path leads to a small clearing where a figure stands. You slow. It's a woman. Hair like woven night sky, eyes sharp as a smith's chisel. She leans on a staff that glows faintly, and she's watching you like someone who already knows every answer you're about to give. Ariadne, you say, breath catching. She raises an eyebrow. You remembered. You nod. She tilts her head. Most don't. I chose the bronze handle. A smile. Then this is real. She steps forward, circles you slowly. Feathers. Perfume. Rat crown, she adds, nodding at the tiny macaroni. Crown still somehow clinging to your tangled hair. You shrug. It's been a long night. She takes the string from your hand, examines it, then ties it in a knot. The knot glows briefly, then vanishes. No longer needed, she says simply. You found your own way, you frown. But I didn't really solve the maze, I just made it through. Ariadne looks at you, expression softening. That is solving it. You blink. Was there ever a right path? She laughs, not unkindly. Historians still debate that. You both stand in silence for a while, watching the clouds drift. Finally, she says, you can stay here, rest. There's a place beyond the hill, quiet, safe. And if I want to go back, you ask. Then you go, she replies, but this time take a map, and maybe a snack. You smile. I'll think about it. She nods. Good. And then, with a last look, she turns and walks away, fading into the sunlight like she was made of it all along. You sit down in the grass. The wind hums gently like it remembers your song. You lie back and close your eyes. No walls, no riddles, no traps, just you and the soft, steady rhythm of your breath. The grass cradles your back like a bed sculpted by nature herself. Firm, a little itchy, but still better than any stone slab or suspiciously soft moss patch you've had to nap on lately. You stare up at the sky, trying to piece together everything that's happened. Talking doors, musical skeletons, diplomatic rodents. A minotaur who drinks tea and reads poetry. Honestly, it's all starting to feel less like a trial and more like an extremely intense theatre production, with audience participation and very specific rules about sandals. But you can't rest forever. Heroes don't retire in meadows. Well, some do, but they usually get turned into constellations first. You sit up slowly, stretching until your joints pop in protest. Then you stand, glance once more at the path Ariadne mentioned, and instead of following it, you choose another, a narrow one that winds back toward the ruins. Because you're not done yet, and because curiosity is a powerful, inconvenient thing. The ruins are quiet, but not abandoned. A faint wind moves through the arches and half-collapsed columns, whispering secrets in a language only emotionally exhausted heroes understand. You move carefully through the space until you find something strange. A stone pedestal in the center of what might have been a temple. On top, a mirror, old, cracked, framed in vines carved from obsidian, and reflected in it, you, but not as you are now. This you is taller, graver, wearing the rat crown like a badge of office, and surrounded by others, not soldiers, not worshippers, rats, hundreds of them, all looking up at you with something resembling admiration. You blink. The mirror changes. Now it shows the Minotaur again, alone, pacing the labyrinth, reading another scroll. He pauses, snorts, and sets it down. Then he looks at the mirror, directly at you, and nods. You step back. The mirror goes blank. You take a moment to breathe, the kind of breath you only take when you're halfway between understanding something and wishing you didn't. You head back toward the meadow, but not the same one. Another appears, because of course it does. The maze might be behind you, but its echo is still in your steps. This new meadow is dotted with wild herbs and small stones carved with names. You read one, then another. Names of those who didn't make it out, but among them, your name isn't there. Yet you find a blank stone. Just one. You crouch and pick up a nearby piece of charcoal. Without really thinking, you write, "Theseus was here. He might come back." Then you set the charcoal down and walk away. Further down the path, you reach a tree, massive, ancient. Its roots curl above ground like serpents frozen mid-conversation. Tied to one of the roots is a thread, not golden, just plain twine, and attached to it a note. You open it. It says, "Bring snacks and jokes and maybe a friend." It's signed, Clank. You laugh out loud, startling a nearby bird into a dramatic flight. Then, as the sun begins to dip just slightly, enough to tint the grass in a warm, sleepy gold, you sit by the tree and close your eyes, and for the first time in ages, no footsteps follow you. Just wind, and the sound of leaves brushing against each other like a lullaby written in green. You wake to the sound of bees, not menacing bees. Not mythical, oversized, labyrinth-protecting bees, just regular ones, lazily drifting from wildflower to wildflower like they have nowhere urgent to be, which is honestly kind of inspirational. You stretch, blinking against the dappled sunlight, peeking through the tree branches above you. Your back cracks in a way that suggests you're either becoming wiser or slowly turning into one of the stone benches you've spent way too much time resting on. You sit up and notice the thread again, still, tied to the root, fluttering slightly in the breeze. The note from Clank is gone. You check your pockets just in case it migrated there. Nope. Just crumbs and one overly suspicious fig seed. The wind shifts. You catch a whiff of something. Something smoky. You rise quickly. It's not fire smoke. More like incense. A blend of sage, charcoal, and just a hint of suspicious ritual. You follow the scent, climbing a low hill until you reach another grove. Nestled within is a round stone platform. In its center, a brazier gently burning. Around it, 7 statues, each slightly smaller than life-sized, arranged in a circle. Each figure holds an object, one a scroll, another a goblet, one holds a miniature harp, another clutches a helmet. You circle them slowly, studying their faces. They're not gods. They're not even famous heroes. They're you, variations of you. One is weary, hunched with age and burden. Another is youthful, eyes wide, holding the string like a trophy. One version of you is laughing, another silent and grim. You stare at the one holding the harp. It's cracked, delicately, like someone tried to fix it and gave up halfway through. A plaque at the base of this statue reads, "The one who listened." You step closer to the brazier. The smoke swirls strangely as you approach, forming vague shapes, moments from your time in the maze. You see the rat senate again, cheering your vote. You see Sid, the skeleton bard, plucking a string made from old regrets. You see the Minotaur sitting in quiet meditation. Then the smoke clears. In the ashes, a single word appears. Ask. You kneel, hesitate, then speak. What was I supposed to learn? The smoke pulses, then reshapes into a sentence. How? To keep walking, you exhale. That's it then. Not how to escape, not how to win, just how to keep going, no matter how many strange doors, talking walls, or existential rodents you encounter. You rise, and that's when the statues begin to hum. Not loudly, not in unison, but softly, like they're breathing. One of them, the version of you holding the helmet, opens its eyes. You stumble back, sword already half out, before you realize it's not attacking. It speaks. Just one word, north, then freezes again. You glance down at your feet. A compass rose is carved into the stone platform, faint, barely visible. But there, you turn north and find a new path. You walk, not fast, not with the reckless urgency of a hero charging to glory, just steady, purposeful, like someone who's learned to stop chasing the end and start reading the footnotes. The path narrows into a rocky incline. As you climb, the trees thin, the wind sharpens, and ahead, you see it, a narrow ridge, at the edge, a lookout. You reach it, breath catching. Below, the labyrinth stretches out like a living map, walls and towers, corridors and courtyards. From this high up, it's almost beautiful, geometric, harmonious, and at the center, not a monster, not a trap, just a garden, lush, blooming, quiet. You laugh. Because, of course, the heart of the maze is a garden. Historians still argue about what Daedalus intended. Was it punishment, a prison, or a puzzle designed not to test strength, but patience and perception? Some scholars think the maze was a metaphor for introspection. Others believe it was just very expensive landscaping. You sit at the edge of the cliff and dangle your feet over the side, and for a while you just watch the breeze roll through the leaves. Then, without quite meaning to, you speak north, and a staircase unfolds beside the ridge, carved right out of the stone, because the maze listens even now. You descend the staircase carefully, each step carved into the ridge with such precision. It feels more like sculpture than architecture. The stone beneath your sandals is warm from the sun, and the breeze carries the scent of thyme and wild rosemary. You wonder if Daedalus had a thing for aromatherapy, or if the labyrinth just decided you needed a break from Minotaur musk. At the base of the stairs, a new passage waits, arched and lined with what appear to be discarded objects. You pause. This hallway isn't like the others. It feels personal, familiar. On the left wall, you spot a dented helmet you remember breaking when you were 12. On the right, a scroll you once copied from your uncle's How to Survive a Mythical Situation lecture series. Further down, a sandal, your sandal, the one you lost on your first training mission and swore the Cyclops took. You walk slowly, absorbing the memories embedded in stone. Then you see it, the chewing gum, stuck firmly to the wall. Several pieces, actually. Old, colorless, and definitely ancient. Someone, possibly you, used them to mark their way. Maybe in a moment of desperate ingenuity, or boredom, or both. You laugh softly. Nice work, past me. You add another piece, fresh, minty, a nod. To continuity. The corridor ends in a fork. You pause, glance left. Narrow, dark, lined with unsettling statues of people mid-sneeze. You glance right, slightly wider, smelling faintly of cinnamon and smugness. You choose right, naturally. It opens into a wide chamber where the floor is covered in gum. Hundreds of pieces forming a crude, colorful mosaic. At the center of the room, a giant piece of parchment nailed to a column. It reads, "This is not art. Stop pretending it is." You grin. Clank's handwriting, you mutter. A squeak draws your attention to the far side of the chamber. There, standing with perfect posture and a very tiny clipboard, is one of the rat cultists from before. He looks up, adjusts his monocle, and nods approvingly. "Rat King adjacent," he says. "We expected you earlier." You gesture at the gum mural. "I got distracted." The rat nods solemnly. "This happens." He scurries to a nearby stone dais and taps it with a tiny cane. A hatch opens, revealing a small cache of odd items. A broken lyre string, a tin of honey, a partially unwrapped fig roll, and what looks suspiciously like a receipt for one labyrinth refurbishment consultation. You glance at the rat. He shrugs. "Souvenirs." You reach for the lyre string. It hums faintly in your hand. "You'll need that," the rat says. "There's a door ahead that only opens with a cord of memory." You blink. That's not even metaphorical anymore, is it? The rat blinks. "We're past metaphor." You exit the gum gallery and follow a narrow stairwell downward. It's darker now, cooler. The scent of the upper world fades, replaced by the subterranean aroma of damp stone and mild dread. At the bottom, a door, wooden, plain, with a lock made of harp strings. You groan. "Oh no," but you're ready. You thread the broken string from the rat's collection into the lock. It hums softly, then vibrates. You strum it badly, and the lock twitches like it's judging your technique. "Look," you mutter, "I didn't get a lot of practice between existential crises." You strum again, softer this time. Not perfect, but honest. The lock clicks. Open. The door creaks aside. Inside, a room full of sound. It's not coming from instruments. It's not echoes, it's voices, your voice, all the things you've said in the maze, muttered to yourself, shouted at doors, whispered in fear or triumph. They float in the air, disembodied and layered. A living diary of your time here. You step into the room. The voices fade. In their place, one clear tone, your own, steady and strong. You kept walking. You smile. There's another door ahead. You don't hesitate. Beyond it, a hallway of light. The walls are blank, the floor smooth, the ceiling high and vaulted. It feels like the kind of space where a story ends, not with a bang but with a long, relieved sigh. At the far end stands a figure, tall, hooded, unmoving. You approach slowly. "Friend or foe?" you ask. The figure doesn't move, then lifts a hand. Not. In threat, in greeting. You stop a few steps away, the hood falls back. It's you, older, weathered, but smiling. He hands you something small, a coin. On one side a thread, on the other a door. You take it. He nods and disappears. You're left alone, holding a coin and suddenly knowing exactly what to do with it. You turn the coin over in your palm, the tiny thread etched on one side, catching the light just so. It gleams, subtle but steady. The door on the other side looks eerily familiar, arched, ancient and slightly crooked like all good exits should be. You can feel something humming within the coin, a faint resonance like it's syncing with your heartbeat, or your destiny, or both. You walk. There's no doubt now, no hesitation, just movement. The corridor ahead is unusually straight, as if the labyrinth is finally tired of being clever. The air is warm again, filled with the scent of oranges and dust, a combination that somehow screams closure. Eventually you reach a fork, of course. To your left, a grand archway lined with gold leaf and polished marble. Dramatic, glorious, smug. To your right, a low wooden door, slightly ajar, with a small brass plate that reads, in scratched handwriting, "Exit." Probably. You glance at the coin again. The side with the door feels warm. You choose the wooden one. As you push it open, the smell hits you first. Fresh sea air, salty, real. The wind curls around your face, tousling your hair like it's been waiting. To do that for days. You step outside, and there it is, the Aegean, stretching out before you in impossible blues, waves catching the sun like scales on a sleeping dragon. The cliffs fall away behind you and nestled below. A quiet harbour, a small boat bobbing gently at its dock. A figure leans on the railing nearby, hooded, cloaked, definitely not ominous. You make your way down the rocky slope, boots crunching over gravel. As you approach the boat, the figure turns. It's Ariadne, again, but older, wiser. Her cloak is stitched with stars, and she's holding a fishing rod. "You took your time," she says. You shrug. "I got distracted. There were rats." She nods. "Like this is not only normal, but expected. Did you find what you were looking for?" You pause. "I think so." She steps aside and gestures to the boat. "Then it's time." You look at her. "Where does it go?" She shrugs. "Forward. Not back to Athens," she smiles. "Why go back to what you were when you've changed so much?" You climb aboard. The boat rocks gently, creaking in that reassuring, seaworthy way. Ariadne hands you a small oar. You look at it, then back at her. "You expect me to row?" She raises an eyebrow. "You did make it through a magical death maze. I believe in you." You sit, place the oar in the water and push off. The boat drifts from the dock with ease, catching the wind like it was made to do this one thing forever. As you float out into open sea, the cliffs recede behind you. The labyrinth is gone, or hidden, or perhaps it never really existed the way you thought it did. In your pocket, the coin is still warm. You take it out, toss it once in the air, and catch it. It lands door-side up. You smile as you watch the horizon. Open up, something brushes your arm, a note, tied to the side of the boat with twine. You untie it. Unroll it. If you come back, bring a new joke. We've heard the harp one too many times. Clank. You laugh, loud and free, startling a seagull that gives you a look of deep judgment before flying off. The wind picks up, the waves sing, and somewhere behind you the labyrinth hums, not angrily, not sadly, just proud. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the sea rock you. When you open them again, a new land is rising on the horizon, and you're ready. The boat glides effortlessly across the sea, slicing through waves that shimmer like spilled starlight. You lean back against a coil of rope, eyes fixed on the horizon, where the sky kisses the water in that lazy golden hour kind of way that makes time feel optional. It's quiet, peaceful, until you hear a thump from below deck. You freeze, another thump, followed by a sneeze. You cautiously lift the hatch and peer down. It's a rat, not just any rat, one of your rats, wearing a travel cloak and holding what appears to be a tiny sword made from a fishbone. He squeaks at you and waves a scroll. You sigh. Did you stow away? He nods proudly, then points to the scroll, unrolls it, and gestures for you to read. The Rat King adjacent clause allows for diplomatic companionship during non-labyrinthine travel for purposes of storytelling, strategic snacking, and existential processing. You blink. Did you write this? The rat shakes his head and points at his chest, then makes a dramatic sweeping motion toward the sea. Ah, you say. You're the storyteller. He nods. You sigh again. Fine, but you have to row for 15 minutes. The rat nods enthusiastically, scurries up onto the deck and proceeds to push at the oar with all the force of a marshmallow trying to move a sofa. Admirable, ineffective, but adorable. You let him keep at it. The sun begins to set behind you, casting long shadows over the waves. The rat curls up beside the mast, scroll tucked under his head like a pillow. You take the oar again and row gently, the water pulling and parting as if the sea itself is listening to your thoughts. As night falls, stars emerge overhead, sharp, bright, ancient. You spot a familiar constellation, not a lion, not a hunter, a bull, but not angry, not charging, just standing, watching. Calm. You whisper, "Hey, Asterion, thanks for the tea." The stars don't respond, but a warm breeze drifts over the boat. You smile, you drift for a while longer, and then the boat nudges up to a new shore. The land here is dark, but welcoming, hills dotted with flickering lights, trees gently rustling, as if whispering secrets to the night. You disembark, the rat following with a yawn and a squeak that probably translates to, "Do they have cheese?" Here, the shore is soft beneath your feet. Not sand exactly, something smoother, more like powdered memory. You leave footprints that fade just a little slower than they should. You walk up a small incline and find a stone bench overlooking the water and sitting on it. Glank! The skeleton bard still bony, still holding his off-tuned lute, still wearing a hat that looks like it was stolen from a seaside cafe's lost and found box. He looks up. Took you long enough? You sit beside him. You always show. Up when I least expect it. He plucks a chord that sounds like someone sighing into a kazoo. You're in the interlude now, not quite where you started, not quite where you'll end. You nod. The rat scampers up and sits on your shoulder, looking out at the sea. Clank gestures toward the horizon with a bony finger. You want to know the secret? You glance at him. There is no end to the maze, he says softly. Just places where it lets go for a while. You think about that. You think about the door with two handles, the coin, the mirror, the minotaur, sipping tea. And letting you go. Do you regret anything? You ask him. Clank shrugs. Just one thing. You raise an eyebrow. I never got to finish my album. You laugh. The rat claps. The wind picks up again, bringing with it the scent of roasted olives and firewood. Clank stands. Go. This place isn't for sitting long. The next story's already circling. You nod, pick up your pack, and walk inland, toward the flickering lights, toward something new. And behind you, the sea sings softly. The path into this new land twists gently, not like the harsh zigzags of the labyrinth, but more like a ribbon lazily tossed across hills by someone in no hurry at all. You follow it, boots crunching on pebbles that glow faintly under the starlight, your tiny rat companion perched on your shoulder like a noble scout with cheese-based dreams. Ahead, the flickering lights resolve into lanterns, hundreds of them, hung between olive trees and over doorways, dangling like stars, pretending to be fruit. You've arrived in a village, small, quiet, and impossibly peaceful. Every house seems to have a view of the sea, a cat lounging somewhere in the vicinity, and at least one basket of figs. You blink. Did the labyrinth design a retirement brochure? A woman sweeping her porch waves at you. New arrival? You nod, still unsure what to say. She points to a large square in the center of the village. Go there, they're expecting you. Of course they are. You make your way to the square. At its center is a stone platform, and on the platform something so absurd you momentarily wonder if this is another test. A podium, a microphone, and a wooden sign that reads, "Open mic, share your journey, free olives." You glance at the rat. He nods solemnly. You approach the podium. A few villagers gather around, most sitting cross-legged with baskets of food or the occasional instrument in hand. You clear your throat. "Hi," you begin. "I'm Theseus. You might know me from such moments as leaving the string behind, arguing with a door, and accidentally becoming royalty among rodents." Scattered laughter. Encouraging. Nods. You take a deep breath and tell your story, not all of it, but the highlights. The vines, the minotaur, the bard, the string, forgotten and then remembered. The bronze handle, the tea. When you finish, the villagers applaud gently, like they've heard hundreds of stories, and each one still matters. Someone hands you a bowl of olives. You sit at the edge of the square, rat nibbling beside you, and feel a strange sensation. Belonging. No one asks if you won. No one mentions glory or monsters. They just listen. After a while, a boy steps up to the podium. He's nervous, young, barefoot. "I haven't been to the labyrinth," he says. "But my brother went once. He never came back." The crowd grows quiet. You lean forward. The boy continues. "He used to say that fear makes you small, but wonder makes you possible." You nod. Clank would have liked that line. The boy steps down. Someone hands him a pomegranate, the ancient currency of honesty. A bell rings once in the distance, then twice. Someone whispers, "A new passage has opened." You feel it too. That subtle shifting in your bones, like a door creaking open inside your chest. You stand. The villagers don't stop you. They just smile, as if to say, "You know the way." You walk out of the village the same way you came, but the path is different now. It leads through a narrow arch carved into the side of a hill. Over the arch are etched the words, "One last turn." You pause. The rat leaps from your shoulder and scurries back toward the village. He's done. You're not. You step through the arch and immediately find yourself back in the labyrinth. But not quite. This time it's quiet. No traps, no doors. Just a long corridor lined with mirrors. You walk slowly, watching yourself from 100 angles, older now, wiser, still feather-stuck in a few places. At the end of the corridor, a door, small, unassuming. You open it and find yourself in a circular room. At the center, a table. On the table, a chessboard. Across from you, seated in a chair much too small for him, is the Minotaur. He looks up, smiles. "Rematch?" he asks. You sit. He moves a pawn. You counter with a knight. As you play, he glances at you. "You didn't forget the string this time." You shake your head. "No, but I didn't really need it either." He nods, clearly pleased. "You know," he says, "historians still debate whether I let you win." You smirk. Let them. The game continues, and the labyrinth watches, not with malice, but with quiet satisfaction. You sit across from the Minotaur in that strangely serene chamber, your hand hovering over the chessboard. The pieces are carved from marble and bone, one set shaped like tiny labyrinths, the other like miniature heroes with over-exaggerated pecs. Yours, unfortunately, he's good, not unbeatable, but clever, patient, which isn't something you usually associate with a legendary monster whose backstory involves abandonment, betrayal, and a steady diet of lost travelers. As you slide your bishop diagonally across the board, he grunts appreciatively. "You've learned restraint." "Mostly because I'm tired," you reply. "But sure, let's call it wisdom." The Minotaur leans back in his chair. "It's funny, isn't it? People think this place is just walls, just traps, but it changes for everyone." You nod slowly. "Yeah. Mine had feather explosions, opinionated ceilings, and a skeleton with a musical career." He chuckles, a low, rumbling sound that seems to make the floor vibrate. Clank's still playing that same song. Unfortunately, you both sit in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the game unfold. Finally, he says, "You know, I used to hate this place." "I did too," you admit. He looks up. "But now," you exhale, "now I think I understand it. Even the echo chamber that talked back?" You grin. "Especially that part." He moves his queen. "Check." You counter without flinching. "You always go for the queen early." He shrugs. "Predictability is comforting." You play a few more moves in silence, and slowly the game evens out. Neither winning, neither losing, just moving. Like the labyrinth itself. No destination, just momentum. After a while, he leans forward. "I think you're ready." "For what?" you ask. He gestures toward a new corridor behind him, just revealed, because of course it is. You'll see. You rise, brush imaginary dust off your tunic, and take one last look at the board. Still in progress, still unresolved, like most of life. As you walk past him, he adds, "You know, I never hated you." You pause, turn. "Even when I forgot the string?" He grins. "Especially then. You made it interesting." You step into the corridor. It's narrower than the others, and lined with tiny windows, each one showing a moment you've already lived. There you are, arguing with a talking door. There's the Rat Council, Sid playing a tragic ballad on his ribcage. Clank getting pelted with popcorn by a ghost during a performance. You laugh quietly. The memories aren't heavy anymore, they're just yours. At the end of the corridor, a staircase spirals upward. You climb. The steps are uneven. Some squeak. One tells you a riddle, which you politely ignore. At the top, a room with a single skylight, and in the center a box. Wooden, simple, not glowing, not humming, just a box. You approach and open it. Inside, your sword cleaned and polished, afresh. A tunic stitched with tiny golden threads, and a scroll. You open it and read, every hero gets a second thread. Even the forgetful ones. You smile beneath the scroll, a new spool of thread, simpler than the first, thicker, unassuming. You pick it up and feel its weight. This time, you won't forget. A trapdoor opens beside the box, revealing a ladder descending. Into darkness, you sigh, of course. You climb down, the ladder leads into a familiar room, the one where you began, the very entrance of the labyrinth. You recognize the markings, the chipped pillar, the slightly untrustworthy torch holder. You step outside. The air is crisp, the sun is rising, and Ariadne stands there, waiting. She smiles, arms crossed. You look like you've been emotionally processed. You laugh, more like internally restructured. She nods toward the path behind her. Ready for the next thing? You hold up the new thread. Depends. Is this one just decorative? She shrugs. Only one way to find out. You fall into step beside her. The labyrinth behind you sighs. Literally. One long exhale, like a myth settling in for a nap. You glance back once, whispering, "Thank you." Then you walk forward, the morning light catching in your hair, the thread tucked safely in your belt, and the road ahead wide, winding, and waiting. The road ahead unfolds like a story you haven't read yet, inviting, unpredictable, possibly full of minor side quests involving goats. You and Ariadne walk in companionable silence, the kind that only comes after surviving metaphysical nonsense and a minotaur who might moonlight as a book club moderator. She glances over at you. So, do you remember everything? You tap the new spool of thread on your belt. Most of it, still fuzzy on whether I actually formed a cult with those rats or just accidentally gave them a logo. Ariadne grins. That was a strong branding moment. You pass an old olive grove where the trees lean like sleepy elders, and the air hums with cicadas and history. The path curves around a crumbling wall, its stones covered in faded graffiti. You pause to read a few. Lost, but vibes are good. Don't follow the goat with the bell. Room 23 is just emotional baggage. Skip it. You point to the last one. True. Ariadne taps another, barely legible beneath a swirl of moss. The maze is not a punishment. It's practice. You nod. It takes a while to realize that your feet don't ache anymore. Your muscles aren't tense. Your shoulders aren't curled up around your ears like they're trying to become earrings. You feel balanced. Where are we going? You ask eventually. She shrugs. There's a town just past the ridge. Fishermen, singers, people who think you're a myth. Technically accurate. They'll ask questions, she says. Want stories. You can tell them or not. You consider that. Then ask, what do you tell people? She smiles. Depends on the day. Sometimes I'm a queen, sometimes a witch. Sometimes I just say, I know how to get red wine out of white linen. Useful skill. You reach the ridge and look. Down. The town is there, sun-baked, sleepy, leaning into the sea like a cat curling against a warm wall. Boats bob gently in the harbour. Market stalls line a narrow street. Children chase chickens. An old man sleeps in the shade of a statue that disturbingly looks a little like you. You squint. Is that statue holding a rat? Ariadne follows. Your gaze. Well, fame takes many forms. You both descend into the town. The people look up as you pass, curiosity flickering in their eyes, but no one rushes forward. No one bows, they just nod, respectfully, as if they know you've been somewhere, done something, come back with sand in your shoes and silence in your soul. At a small cafe, You sit. The owner, a woman with forearms that suggest she could lift a boulder and politely place it on your head if necessary, brings you water and a plate of bread drizzled with oil and herbs. You look like you fought something interesting, she says. You nod. Myself, she smirks. Those usually. Bite back the hardest, you eat slowly. The bread is warm, crisp at the edges. The oil tastes of sun and soil and something sweet you can't quite name. Ariadne sips her drink, watching the horizon. Then she asks, "What will you do now?" You pause. "I think," you say, "I'll teach people how to walk through mazes without needing a string." She nods, pleased. The wind shifts, a door slams somewhere. A bell rings 3 times. You glance back toward the path you came from. The labyrinth is gone, or maybe it just doesn't need to be visible anymore. One of the children runs past your table holding a piece of parchment. She stops, eyes wide. You the guy from the drawing?" You look at the paper. It's a sketch of you, or something trying to be you. The hair is wildly inaccurate, and for some reason you're riding a goat. You smile. Close enough. She runs off, giggling. You finish. "Your bread. Wipe your hands. Stand slowly." You and Ariadne walk toward the docks. She points to a small boat, painted blue, gently rocking in the water. "That one's yours." You raise an eyebrow. "Where does it go?" She shrugs. "Wherever you point it." As you step into the boat, she adds, "Don't forget, heroes don't just fight. Sometimes they remember. That's harder." You nod, push off, and sail into the sea once more, not toward an end, but toward a beginning that finally knows your name. Land rises slowly ahead, like a quiet promise. No towers, no labyrinth, just hills covered in olive trees and long grass, swaying in the wind like they've been waiting to welcome you home. Or at least to wherever this version of home wants to be. As you dock your boat on a small beach, the name Threadbare catches your eye again, glinting in the early morning sun. It looks official now, like the boat always had that name, and only now decided to let you in on the secret. You step onto the shore, stretch, and immediately hear something odd. Clapping. Slow, dramatic clapping. You turn, and there, sitting on a rock with all the theatrical gravitas of a retired stage actor, is Clank Skeleton Lute, oversized sunglasses, sipping something purple from a coconut. He gestures at you. Well, 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 look who figured out how to exit both metaphorically and geographically. You smirk. Didn't you say your arc was over? He tosses the coconut aside. Yes, but then I remembered. I love curtain calls. You walk over, sit on a rock beside him. He offers you a second coconut. Inside, something tart and fizzy, possibly fruit, possibly ancient potion. You drink it anyway. "So," he says, adjusting his shades. "What did you learn?" You think. "I learned the maze wasn't meant to trap me, just slow me down long enough to think." He nods. Solid answer. Very final episode energy. "I also learned not to argue with ceilings." Ah, yes, Ceilingus Maximus, terrible critic. You sip again, and I remembered the thread. Clank claps once. There it is, the line that wraps the whole thing together. Poetic, marketable. A pause. Then, softer, he says, "You know you can rest now." You look around. The shore is peaceful, the breeze just right. A few birds arguing gently in the trees. You nod. "Yeah, I think I will." But even as you say it, something shifts inside. Not a pull exactly, more like a nudge. A whisper from the part of your brain that never quite stopped being curious. Clank notices. He leans forward, grinning. "You thinking of going back in?" You blink. "Back where?" He gestures vaguely. Not the same labyrinth, but a labyrinth. There's always another. You exhale. Isn't that the point of escaping? To be done? He shrugs. Depends. Some people walk out and become bakers. Others become poets. A few become gods. You raise an eyebrow. I'm guessing you became a skeleton with questionable taste. In beverages, best choice I ever made, he replies, raising his coconut. You laugh, then look inland. A narrow path winds up into the hills. It doesn't glow. It doesn't whisper, but it's there, and you feel it again, that itch. Clank notices. You can stay, or you can go. Either way, you've already won. You stand slowly. You're coming with me, right? He shakes his skull. Nope. I've got a concert in a seaside tavern tonight. But I'll leave a few breadcrumbs. Metaphorical ones. I'm not wasting actual bread. You walk to the start of the path. Turn back one last time. Thank you. He waves. Tell the next maze I said hi. You step onto the trail. This one is different, no tricks, just steps. And as you climb, the sea fades behind you. In your pocket, the thread, your sword. Lighter than before, and something else. Not a map, not a scroll, a story. Yours. You carry it like a torch now. Not because it lights the way, but because it reminds you that you've already been lost and made it through. The path winds higher, narrower, until the trees thin out and the sky begins to open above you like a great forgiving eye. The air is cooler here, and you can feel it brushing the sweat from your skin like a reward. There are no signs, no cryptic messages, no vines whispering sweet madness into your ears. It's quiet, which is somehow the strangest thing of all. Eventually, the trail ends at a stone circle, worn, sun-bleached, the kind of place where something significant probably happened once, though no one bothered to write it down. You step into it, half expecting a god to appear or at least a talking goat, but it's empty, except for a bench and a small plaque that reads, "Sit. Remember, then go." You sit. The bench creaks, not out of disrepair, but as if stretching. After a long nap, from this height you can see for miles, the coast behind you, the sea glittering like it's trying to win a beauty contest. And in the distance ahead, another land, another question mark, another story. You let your thoughts drift, to the Minotaur, to Ariadne, to Clank and his tragic jazz chords, to the rats who believed in your leadership based solely on your ability, to walk in a circle and not scream, to yourself, the version who forgot the thread, the one who picked the bronze handle, the one who chose to walk forward, even when there was no map, no sign, and definitely no insurance. You close your eyes. For a moment you see it again, the labyrinth, but this time from above. The paths rearranging not randomly but rhythmically, like breath, like a heartbeat, like something alive and waiting, not to trap you, but to teach you. You open your eyes, the wind shifts, and the plaque glows faintly. A new message appears below the first. You've walked far enough to leave the circle, but not so far you can't draw another. You smile, reach into your pack, pull out the coin, still warm. You place it on the bench beside you. Then, from a pouch you forgot you had, you draw a piece of chalk. You kneel and draw a spiral in the stone. Not for you, for the next person, not a map, not a path, just a start. You walk beyond the circle. The trail dips and curves. Eventually, you hear voices, not echoes, real ones. Laughter, children yelling something about flying fish, someone strumming a lyre competently. Thank the gods. You emerge into a village. Not the one before, a new one, built on the edge of a cliff, all whitewashed stone and blue shutters and baskets of drying herbs. A woman is weaving thread on a loom outside her home. She glances up, nods. "You're late," you blink. "Do I know you?" "No," she says, "but I know the walk." A man hands you a slice of something sweet, warm with honey and pistachios. "They said someone would come. You smell like metaphor. You eat it. Delicious." In the square, people are gathered around a fire. One of them looks up, sees you and says, "You tell stories." You nod. "Tell us one." You sit and begin. Not at the start, but somewhere in the middle. Because the beginning is always shifting, and the end, well, that's just the next maze in disguise. Your voice weaves through the square like a gentle breeze, low, steady, and just the right amount of dramatic. The villagers lean in, sipping from earthen cups, the flickering fire casting shadows that dance along their faces. Even the dog, lying by the baker's stall, lifts his head. You don't give them the polished version, you give them the real one. "The first thing I did," you say, "was forget the thread." Gasps, laughter. One old man snorts into his wine and mutters, "Classic hero move." You nod. And from there, things got strange. You tell them about the echo that argued back, the barred skeleton with a taste for tragic waltzes, the rats who held elections and demanded jazz. You speak of the Minotaur's tea habits and the string that wasn't needed, until it was. You describe the doors, the riddles, the rooms that were just mirrors, and the sudden appearance of a skateboard at a 20-degree incline. But the worst part, you add, was realizing I wasn't supposed to fight my way out. They're quiet now, the kind of quiet that only comes when people are no longer just listening, but remembering their own mazes. You finish your story with the moment you stepped into the boat, not because it was the end, but because it was the first time you truly chose to keep going. Someone claps, then another. Soon the entire square is applauding, not loudly, not like fans, but like fellow travelers acknowledging your return. Later, one by one, the villagers drift home. You stay by the fire alone again, but this time it feels different, like you're part of the silence, not trapped by it. A boy approaches, hair wild, arms covered in chalk smudges. He holds out a small spool of thread, plain twine, barely wound. "For you," he says. You blink. "Why?" He shrugs. "You might need it again." You take it. "Thanks." He grins, then adds, "I left something in the labyrinth once, too." "What?" He scratches his head. "A song, still stuck in one of the echo halls." You chuckle. "Yeah, it does that." He runs off and you sit again, threading the twine through your fingers. It's rough, imperfect, real. You glance up. A single star streaks across the sky. You take that as permission. In the morning, you find a small shop tucked between a tavern and a temple. Inside, scrolls, maps, journals, tools the shopkeeper eyes. You over a pair of spectacles shaped like infinity symbols. "Looking for a compass, looking for an invitation," you reply. She smiles, reaches under the counter, and pulls out a small box. Inside, a bronze key. "East of here," she says. "There's a door no one can open, not unless they've walked through something wild." You take the key. It feels familiar in your palm. That night, you sit by the water again, the spool of twine beside you, the key warm in your pocket, the stars reflected in the sea like the maze is trying to write you a note in constellations. You whisper, "Still not done, huh?" The waves nod. You tie the twine around your wrist, not because you're afraid of getting lost, but because you're curious what the next you will forget. and what they'll learn instead. The next morning, you wake before the sun, the village, still wrapped in that velvet quiet that only exists between dreams and daylight. You sling a pack over your shoulder, pocket the bronze key, and wind the spool of twine around your wrist again, tighter this time. Not out of fear, just ritual. You follow the shopkeeper's directions east, past terraced gardens and fig trees, humming with bees, until the village gives way to a wild, wind-swept coastline. The cliffs here are jagged but beautiful, weathered bones of the world laid bare against a sky that can't decide what kind of day it wants to be. Eventually you find it, the door, set into a rock face, narrow and unadorned, with no handle and no visible keyhole, just a seam and silence. You pull out the bronze key. No keyhole. You frown. Then remember, the labyrinth listens. You knock. Nothing happens. You whisper, "I'm ready." Still nothing. You press your palm flat against the stone and think of all the doors you've passed through, those that mocked, challenged, opened for the right pun, or closed on a bad chord. This one doesn't want a performance. It wants patience. So, you sit, you wait, and slowly the stone warms beneath your hand, the seam glows, and the door opens. Not with a dramatic rumble, but with the soft sound of something changing its mind. You step through and find yourself in a forest. Not dense, not dark, just timeless. Sunlight filters through trees with leaves like fragments of song. The ground is soft. The path ahead isn't carved, it's suggested. A gentle depression in the earth, like someone walked this way once, and the land decided to remember it. You follow. You pass a stone cairn, balanced on top, a feather, blue, familiar. You smile. A few meters further, a tree carved with names. Yours isn't there yet. You don't carve it, not yet. The trail bends, and suddenly you hear something. Faint music, not Clank's dramatic lute. This is simpler, humming. You follow it until the trees open into a clearing. At the center, a campfire, unlit. Surrounding it, people. They turn as you arrive. Not villagers, not reflections. People like you. Travelers. You recognize one, vaguely. A girl who once shouted a riddle at a cursed painting. A man who lost a coin and found a harp. Another whose tunic is still scorched from some fire-born door-beast. They nod. You sit. Someone hands you bread. Another, a map drawn in crayon and optimism. You add your spool of twine to the pile in the center, dozens of threads from other journeys. Red, gold, silver, blue. Some tangled, some frayed, one chewed by something with tiny teeth and bad taste. A woman stands. She says nothing, just holds up a small, broken compass. Everyone watches. Then she tosses it into the fire pit and lights it. The flames rise high, not dangerous, just welcoming. You sit back and finally understand, this isn't the next maze. This is the space between them, a place to rest, to remember, to meet others who forgot their own strings, then found new ones. Later, someone asks you to tell your story. You hesitate, then say, "Only if you tell me yours after." A nod, a smile, a shared flame between souls who got lost and found something better than direction. They found momentum. The fire burns low, crackling in that soft, companionable way that makes people talk quieter and sit closer. Around you, stories unravel, not as rehearsed epics, but in fragments, snapshots, laughter that turns into confessions, memories retold, with edits that make them safer, or funnier, or simply easier to carry. Someone shares how they once argued with a staircase for an hour before realizing it was just very stubborn architecture. Another recounts a room filled entirely with spoons, none of which fit the lock they were meant for. You share the echo that answered back. The rats who held court. The door that asked for a joke, and the minotaur who never raised his axe. They laugh, not because it's funny, though some of it definitely is, but because it's familiar. Later, as the fire dwindles to embers, someone passes you a piece of parchment. It's blank. You glance up. A young woman with bright eyes and ink-stained fingers gestures to a pile of similar pages beside her. We write them down, not for remembering, for letting go. You look at the page, then write, "I forgot the thread, but I never stopped walking." You fold it, hand it back, and she adds it to the pile. No questions, no praise, just inclusion. You lie back, watching the stars pulse overhead. One twinkles brighter than the rest, maybe because it's a planet, maybe because it's watching you specifically. Stars do that sometimes. Someone curls up nearby, whispering in their sleep about too many ducks. Another hums softly, a melody half-remembered from a hallway where time tried to walk backward. You rest and dream. In your dream, the labyrinth isn't a place. It's a rhythm, a pulse under the earth. It stretches across cities and deserts, across islands and underseas. Not as a trap, but a conversation, a dialogue between fear and motion. You see others walking their own paths, some cautiously, others dancing through turns. One stops to plant flowers in a dead end, another maps their route with breadcrumbs and poems. You smile in your sleep, and when you wake, the forest is quieter, the fire is out, but the circle remains. You rise, pack your things, the map someone gave. You is still ridiculous, mostly drawings of frogs and one suspiciously well-drawn minotaur flexing, but you keep it anyway. For spirit, you wave goodbye to the others. Some nod, some are still asleep. The trail forward is misty, uncertain, perfect. As you walk, the path rises, leading you through fog and up to a ridge. There, you pause. Below, another labyrinth. New walls, new questions, new jokes waiting to fail spectacularly. You breathe, and then you run, not out of fear, not to escape, but because movement is how you say yes to the next mystery. As you descend into the entrance, the stone walls hum quietly, not with warning, but with recognition. They know your steps now, and they shift, not to trick you, but to test you in new ways, and you're ready. You adjust your belt. Feel the twine around your wrist. Take a deep breath and step into the new story. The new labyrinth accepts you without ceremony. No dramatic door slam. No sudden change in air pressure, just a quiet corridor that smells faintly of lavender and an inexplicable hint of citrus, like someone once spilled wine here and it became part of the architecture. You walk. This time, you don't count steps, you don't touch walls, you don't panic at intersections, because now you understand. The point isn't to track the path, it's to engage with it. You pass a mirror, but it doesn't reflect you. It shows someone else, a girl you met at the fire circle, drawing mazes in the dirt with her finger. She smiles, waves. Then the image ripples and becomes a rat holding a scroll labeled "Official Apology to Ceiling Tiles." You laugh. The labyrinth laughs with you. Eventually you arrive at a wide chamber. In the center a table. Around it 3 doors. On the table a single card. You flip it. This is not a test, it's an invitation. You glance at the doors. One hums softly, like it's singing under its breath. Another glows faintly, pulsing in rhythm with your heart. The third one, completely ordinary. You choose the third. Inside, a room made entirely of soft fabric, pillows, blankets, a fire flickering in a wall-mounted niche, a cat sleeping on a high shelf, utterly indifferent to your journey. It stretches, blinks at you, then closes its eyes again, as if to say, "You may proceed, but quietly." You smile, you sit, and for once you rest because you can, not because you need to. This is what the thread was for, not to lead you out, to remind you of your own continuity, your story. You unspool a bit, tie it to the doorknob, leave it dangling. Behind, then you open the next door and step into a meadow. It's vast, golden, full of wildflowers and bees that clearly have union regulations about buzz volume. There's a path, but it's not made of stone, just worn grass, shaped by footsteps over generations. In the distance, a hill with a single tree. You walk toward it, climb, and at the top you find a bench. You sit again. But this time, it's not a pause, it's a mark. You breathe deeply. Let the wind move through. Your thoughts. You think of Athens, of labyrinths, of Clank and his lute, of the Minotaur who taught you that not all monsters need slaying, of Ariadne, always 2 steps ahead. You reach into your pocket and find the coin. One side a thread, the other a door. You press it into the soil beside the bench. Just a token, just a reminder. And then, slowly, calmly, you lie down in the grass. Let the world soften around you. Let the weight you've been carrying dissolve. You close your eyes, and for the first time in a very, very long while, you dream without a maze. The wind settles, the grass bends gently, rustling in slow, sleep-heavy patterns. Your breath deepens, the sky above fades into indigo, stars blinking into place one by one like shy dancers taking the stage. The world no longer spins quickly, it slows to match your rhythm. Even time seems to sigh, folding its arms and saying, "We'll finish this later." You feel the earth beneath you, firm, forgiving, and above, the tree stretches its limbs like it's watching over you, shielding you from dreams too loud or memories too sharp. Somewhere far away, someone lights a candle. Someone else ties a thread to their wrist and takes a first step, but not you. Not tonight. You've walked far enough. You've turned enough corners, asked enough riddles, and made enough wrong turns that eventually became right ones. Now, you're just here, breathing, held safe. The labyrinth is quiet now, not gone, just sleeping. It knows you'll return when you're ready, and it'll be there, reshaped and welcoming, with new jokes, new tea, and maybe even a few familiar faces in new disguises. But for now, you rest, softly, completely, without hurry. The stars stay where they are. The wind hushes to a lullaby, and the grass hums beneath you. You are no longer searching. You are home.